This is Block 10, the 1960s, Section 3, Social Upheaval, with the section The Counterculture. It started at Berkeley again, kind of as an outgrowth of the free speech movement. Was the birth of what came to be known in the United States as the counterculture. Idealistic young students, or students out for a good time, you take your pick. Idealistic young students, fired up by the war in Vietnam, fired up over continuing racial problems in the United States, fired up over this idealistic idea that they could remake the world in their own idealistic image. Many middle-class Americans who had grown up, in little suburban houses where dad went to work and mom stayed home, and they went to school and played football and hung out with their friends in houses with white picket fences. Many of these middle-class Americans became political radicals and social radicals. America started being spelled with the K's. Patriotism became a dirty word. The drug culture among the counterculture was endemic, starting with marijuana, but soon moving to acid and LSD. Drugs were simply a part of daily life for most people who participated in these countercultural movements. They rejected, of course, material values. They rejected middle-class values. They started rejecting the United States and all that the United States stood for. They rejected the concept of marriage and monogamy. They started to reject Christianity. And in the end, they rejected all of 2,000 years of Western civilization entirely. With their own music, their own poetry, their own communes, many of these countercultural people became what was known as hippies. They ran away from home very often as young as 14 years old, walked the roads of America being picked up by other hippies, some obviously with, peace, love, and dope on their minds, and some others with, negative things on their minds. And traveled to the West Coast, especially in and around the city of San Francisco, to have an authentic experience. That word started with the beatniks, that, an experience outside the material middle-class values that they had grown up with was somehow more legitimate, more authentic than the things that they were used to. Women with flowers in their hair, and, men wore their hair long with flowing trousers, all things designed to piss off the squares, to piss off, the people in authority. That women were supposed to look a certain way, men were supposed to look a certain way, and the countercultural hippies, actively flaunted those things. They celebrated leaving traditional American ways and morals and values and mores behind. They hitchhiked, across the country. They lived in hippie communes, outside of major cities, in the woods. And some of those communes, worked for a while, that the idealism was strong enough to overcome human nature for a little while, but most of them failed, and the hippies, after a little while, kind of crawled back home in a lot of ways. Those who hadn't died of drug overdoses or had been kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery, like many, many happened. The hippies joined, while the hippie movement was going strong, joined in the protest against the universities, joined in the protest against the war, and against, racist, sexist, imperialistic America in general. What did they leave behind for us? Good music, I suppose, and an example of a lot of middle-class youth not liking being middle-class youth and wanting to do different things. They're a cultural icon. The idealism of it was real. And the hippie movement lasted kind of as long as the idealism survived, and as soon as the real world, in a lot of ways caught up to them, their hippie days were over. But it was, I guess, for a lot of them, it was kind of cool while it lasted. As long as the drugs didn't do too much damage and they didn't get too many STDs, they could look back on their days as hippies with fond memories. But it was a very popular movement. A lot of people, either joined in, and millions more, sympathized with the people willing to just shake off all of those middle class bourgeois values and live according to the dictates of their own hearts, or at least what all their dictates of their own hearts were supposed to be. These are certainly not people, when they're all doing it together, they're certainly not marching to the beat of a different drummer. They're all just marching to the beat of each other's drummer. But it made them feel that they were a part of something new and idealistic and young and visionary. And a lot of people did it.